Hey guys, it's Kevin here. I just wanted to make a quick video about this player I found in solo queue a few days ago, named JJFJC. Now I've actually talked to this guy a lot. Doing my coaching sessions, and he's actually quite the impressive player. In this game in particular, he ended up going 1-9-2. Now his build was a little bit suboptimal, but I think he managed to pull off quite the impressive performance here. He did lose the game, unfortunately, but obviously that's just because this Kazakh who didn't gank enough. Now let's start up the replay because what you see here is pretty phenomenal. You know, he does everything correctly. He executes it really well, and he really thinks through about his decisions and actions throughout the entire game. Now, starting off here, he's AFK in base because he knows that his team is gonna run it down into the jungle, and he has already given up. He hasn't even bought items yet because he is just that powerful. You see, now because his team is invading and they're in base, and now he's finally bought the corrupting potion, is heading top. He has had this strategical advantage because it has made the team kind of feel safer. You know, they have this like false sense of security that, you know, JJFJC is not gonna just, you know, stomp over them, right? And right here he's kind of walking into this bush despite not knowing where the entire team is. Now normally you think, hey, I probably shouldn't face check this, because, you know, maybe like the Astral Malphite is sitting there and he might get relayed back and not be able to leash the Kazakhs. But leashing the Kazakhs is not a problem when you just don't leash the Kazakhs at all, like he does here. Now, the reason he does this is because Kazakhs is a really strong early game jungler who has a lot of HP to spare, and you know, JJFJC knows that, right? He knows the cooldowns, he knows the timings, and he you know, he's aware, right? Now he's sitting here in the mid bush here because he's here and he's against the Malphite, right? And he knows he's just gonna go in level 1 and he's just gonna win because he's so strong. Now the reason he walked out of the bush and then back in the bush is because he can sit here and just miss the minions. Now, why would you miss the minions, you might ask, against a Malphite who doesn't seem too coordinated, right? Now, the reason is because missing the minions just like that makes it so that it lures the enemy into this false sense of security, where Malphite feels like he can just Q him, right? But really he can't, because he started Doran's Ring instead of Leandri's, right? And what JJFJC here is doing right now is just getting hit by these comets so that he, you know, lures him into this like false sense of security, right? And right there, he didn't manage to E him, not because he made a mistake, but because he didn't make a mistake. And now you see here, he stands through and fights a Malphite who has lower cooldowns than him and is also has Ignite. Now, why does he do that? Now, you see, Malphite is a really good player, right? And JJFC knows that, right? But JJFC is a better player, right? So that's why he stands there and he just goes in, right? Now, you see here, he bought a regen bead because, of course, he's going T-Mat into a Malphite that he'll never kill. But, you know, regardless, right? Why do you go T-Man? I know a lot of pros have been recently. I've been talking to a lot of people in the LCK, and they really haven't been, you know, supporting T-Man, right? Now the reason people T-Man is because he doesn't know how to manage waves anyways, right? So like, why not just build T-Man, right? Like it's just such a, you know, phenomenon, right? It kind of feels like we're losing here, you know. We're losing over to the, you know, the guy, right? So anyways, as I was saying, you know, JJFC here, really good player, you know, region beat, yeah. Now, you see, Malphite here is walking to the lane, but he is already up 10 CS, right? And the reason he's up 10 CS is because right here, he decided to freeze, right? This has already made him better than the LCK player, because LCK players don't freeze, right? You know, you see, right there, he walks up, he gets hit with the Q, and then gets hit with 20 minion autos, and he decides to do that because he wants to lure him into a false insecurity. Now, the reason he stands there and just gets hit is not because he's bad, right? I know what people are asking this. Here, Kevin, why does JJFJC he looks like he's inting, right? He looks like he's taking free damage, but that's not the reason. The reason is because he has the corrupting pot that he's already used 2 charges of, even though the enemy wasn't in lane half the time, and now he's just missing CS to lure him into the false sense of security, right? Obviously, Kha'Zix is topside right now, right? And he's right about to gank right here, right? And the reason he does that is because he's a really good player. You know, JJFC he queues onto the cannon and gets it, right? Now the reason he gets it is because he's a really good player, you know, using the last charge of his corrupting pot, right? And you know, he goes up here for the minion, right? Gets chunked down for 20 billion damage, right? Now you might be asking yourself, hey, isn't he kind of low? Doesn't he have, you know, a small amount of pressure to walk up right now? Now the reason he walks up now this time is because this time when he walks up, he will die, right? And the reason he dies is because he's like 2 HP. But you know, of course, Kha'Zix is just the best jungler in the world, right? Like if you want to replay that, which I will right now, except I don't know the controls. Kha'Zix came in from the bot side, ran straight up because he knew JJFCC he would carry. Right, JJFCC, the guy who's 0-1, but he is up 10 CS. That's right, 10 CS. Right, the reason he's up 10 CS is because he decided to freeze. Right, now freezing is this forbidden technique discovered by the ancient Mesopotamians. Right, and by freezing and using his E on the wave, right, he has successfully created this wave that will shove into the enemy, right, and then once he recalls and he gets back, it will shove back. Now, the reason is because when the wave is at the enemy tower, right, it tends to shove back because the minions group up here, and then it pushes all the way into his tower, leaving him with a CS advantage, right? Now, the reason he backs here is because he's a really good player, and he knows that if he's low HP, right, and Malphite is there, and Malphite has all his abilities up, he is going to die, right? As well as that, he also knows that Ignite is on his cooldowns, right? Now, this is because JJFCC is a really good player. He really knows what he's doing, really well coordinated, really good timing in the base where he stands here for 20 seconds just to buy a nothing. Now you see he does the B emote here because he knows, right? He knows that the enemy is really sad right now. The enemy is really sad that JJFCC did not miss any minions at all because he is just such a good player at such good wave management, right? Walking back to lane, you know, only missed 3 melees and 1 caster, you know. Now this wave right here, he can freeze this, right? The reason he can freeze this is because there is more minions on his side, but he does not decide to freeze it because he's a really good player. He's really proficient, you know, really good. Even though he's up like 20 items and like by that time he was up 10 CS. Now he's a really good player. Now his Kha'Zix right here is getting invaded, right? Now what is about to happen here is Malphite ults the Lux and kills. And the reason this happens is because JJFCC is a really good player who doesn't like to ping his jungler missing until it's too late. Now, the reason he does that is because he's a really good player, you know, he's really well coordinated with his team, right? Very proficient, you know, and that's why he missed the melee minion. Well, you see, JJFC here, you know, while he could be denying the Malphite a very easy CS by freezing the wave, or denying the Malphite by pushing the wave all the way in, he decides to slow push when his Malphite is out of the lane and in the shop. Now, you see, by doing this, right, once Malphite walks back to lane, he will have soaked all of the CS that he has not missed, and they will lose nothing at all. You know, the reason JJFC does this is because JJFCC is a really good player, really proficient at Jax, really nice, really good player, you know, and JJFCC knows that he is about to dominate this Malphite, not just mentally, but physically. He is going to go to his house, tie him down into a chair, go to his bed, and rape him. You know, he's going to suck him off, right, because he's a really good player, you know, using the Q on the melee minions, and now Malphite has come back, and he has caught all this CS, all this XP, because of his poor, I mean, very good minion decisions. You know, you see, JJFCC goes in here because he knows that despite Malphite having this item, he is going to win. The reason he's going to win is because JJFCC is a really good player, really mechanically outping the Jax going in without the E, getting queued, getting scorched off, and just a really good player in general, you see? Now, JJFCC here, he sits here, he gets hit by the Q, right? But he knows Malphite are is not up, right? So what I should do is get hit, get poked down, so that when it is up, he can just kill me right then and there. Now, the reason JJFC does this is because he's a really good player, right? He's really talented, really smart, really fancy, really nice, right? Now, the reason JJFC is a really good player is because he's Chinese, right? Chinese people have naturally ingrained in their minds to be good at League of Legends, or their mom beats them, right? Now, JJFCC here, you see, he might be getting denied off the minions, but it doesn't matter because this Malphite is retarded, and he's actually getting denied off no minions, right? Now, JJFCC here decides to let the minions push into his tower because he knows that once he gets this cannon, he will win the game. The top lane has already been won here. There is no point in playing because he decides to go in and miss more gold than he would have actually gotten otherwise. Now, the reason he does this is so that he cannot get the kill and just miss 4 to 5 caster minions worth of CS, XP, and gold. Now, the reason he dies here is because JJFC is a really good player who decides to opt in and lose 4 CS and then get killed. Now, that's because Kha'Zix is right around, but he's actually not around here. He's actually around here. Now, the reason he does this is because JJFCC is a really good player, really proficient, really smart. You know, he's luring Malphite into this false sense of security where he feels like he can get kills, but he actually cannot. Now, the reason he can and it cannot is because JJFCC is a really good player who knows everything that's going on in the game. Now, right here, he respawns and it seems as if he's bombed the teammate, TP's right back into the tower, right, walks up and shoves the wave with his teammate. Now, the reason JJFC does this is because he's a really good player, really proficient at wave management, really good at getting that teammate auto reset off. Very difficult technique. And you see right here, instead of letting the cannon die like you know normal people would, he decides to opt in to shove the entire wave into the enemy, so that even though Malphite didn't take TP and he did take TP, he has actually lost more than Malphite because he decided to TP. Now, the reason he does this is because he knows that he can just out-skill Malphite, outplay Malphite, out-damage Malphite, because Malphite sucks, right? And JJFCC is a really good player. You see Malphite over here buying a Sheen because he's stupid, right? He knows that once he gets that Iceborne Gauntlet, he loses. And you see right here, Kha'Zix that opts to go in, you know, JJFCC flashes in, gets the kill, because JJFCC is a really good player, really proficient at League of Legends. You see, now right here, when Volibear and Yasuo comes, even though they were on the map, JJFCC decides to walk out, you know. Now, right here, Kha'Zix dies because JJFCC is a really good player, really proficient at what he does. Now, he goes in, gets out, you know, gets hit by the Q and dies because he's a really good player, really proficient at Jax, very good at the game, you know. He knows that he needs to lure that Yasuo into a false sense of security, because that's just how smooth JJFJC is, right? Now, you see, in Sun Tzu's Art of War, there was this old, like, huge passage about how you need to let the enemy lure him into you so that you can miss an entire cannon wave worth of minutes. Now, JJFCC is doing that perfectly. He's employing that tactic so that even though he killed Malphite and got an entire shutdown, he actually loses more than Malphite does, because all these minions are dying here and none of his minions are dying, right? Now, you see, the reason that is because he's a really good player, right? And who lets Yasuo get all the CS and let himself get no CS, because he's a really good player, really proficient at the game. And right here, you see, the Herald has been summoned up on the top lane, and he just loses a lot of gold. Now, the reason he loses gold is not because he's a bad player, it's because he's a really good player who knows how to manage his wave, who knows how to do his lane, who knows how to play the game. Because JJFCC is a really good player, you know, who's very talented, uses his TP for very important things, such as going bot lane all the time to apply pressure into the map. You know, like this Malphite over here, right? This Malphite's a fool. He knows, you know, Malphite is stupid, right? Because JJFCC has finally pushed all the wave into the tower, except he hasn't, because JJFCC is a really good player. You know, he's really proficient at what he does. You know, Malphite might be 3-1. He might actually only be behind like 10 CS despite JJFCC being in the lane the entire game. JJFCC is coming here, getting the platings, getting the tower, getting the gold, getting the win, out here doing great for his team. Now you see, this Yasuo coming up here, he's a fool. He's stupid. He doesn't understand that JJFJC is a really good player who's about to destroy him. Now, despite him seeing Yasuo, he decides to stay there because he wants to lure Yasuo into a false sense of security, right? And of course, right now he walks away because he knows that Yasuo's cooldowns are up, his timings are up, and if Yasuo gets onto him, he's just gonna die, right? And that's why he walks away because he's a really good player, stands still, really good player. Now, Yasuo just wasted all his time, all his effort, and this Lux is just going to live, and he's just a really good player, really efficient, really proficient at what he does, Now, JJFJC, he's getting the minions, he's getting the gold, he's getting the gold advantage, he scales so much harder, and he just decides to run in, right? The reason he decides to run in is because Malphite is actually up several thousand gold worth of items. On top of that, it seems as if JJFJC is actually sitting on, like, around 300 to 1,000 gold, or 1,600, either or. You see, because JJFJC is a really good player who needs his items to succeed, but he knows that because even though he needs his items to succeed, he's just such a good player, he can just beat this Malphite who has gotten like 3 kills and backed, and he has not, because he's a really good player, really proficient at what he does. And now you see, he loses all of these minions here, not because he's bad at the game, not because, despite Malphite being out of lane 24/7, he is somehow still only 10 CS behind, but because JJFJC is a really good player, really understands what he's doing, really sees the path to victory here, right? In Sun Tzu's Art of War, there was this passage about how JJFJC is just the best player, the best tactical commander of the entire world, right? Because JJFJC is just the greatest. He's so good, he's so talented, so smart, so handsome, so good at Jax. You see, now he jumps over here with the God King, God Emperor Mecha Jax, walks in towards the minion, and he now, right here, he's shoving the minion with because he bought T-Mat, right? But what buying T-Mat does is it enables you, right? So that to go in while you are like 6,000 gold behind, and Malphite still has R, and he just decides to go in, run in. It's really efficient, very nice gameplay, right? He gets into lane, he gets around a half wave of minions, and then he just dies. Now, the reason he does this is because he wants to lure Malphite into this false sense of security, where Malphite feels like he's safe, he's ready to be managed, he's ready to come, and Malphite is just a really bad player, and JJFJC is just a really good player who's really good at the game, and like right now, like a lot of people are scouting him as this like regional talent who's really like underlooked, and I'm fully expecting him to be on T1 Academy next year, because JJFJC is just a really good player, really efficient at what he does, really just knows how the game works, how the timings function. It is able to adapt, is able to go in, get out fast, and he fucked my mom yesterday. Like, he's just such a good player right here, taking all this damage while Malphite takes on, because he is just up so much gold, has such a big lead, is so good at the game, and despite Malphite being out of lane the entire time, now he's even CS. Now, the reason he's even CS is because JJFJC is a really good player who really knows how the timings work, right? And right now, he's just walking backwards because he knows that if he steps off even a bit, he'll just die. Now, the reason he'll just die is because Malphite is actually just a really bad player, and JJFJC is a really good player. And right here, he goes in, gets the EQ off, and then he takes this huge chunk of damage because he knows that he's a really good player who's really percent the game, and is just going to stand through despite Malphite being up 6,000 gold and has an Ice One Gauntlet, because he's just a really good player, really a proficient at what he does, because he knows that JJFJC is just a proficient player, Like, I've been talking with a freak-ass coach yesterday, a very high MMR StarCraft player who, told me yesterday that when he was on the streets, right, and there was this guy that came up to him, right, his name was like Jack Jang or something, right, this like weird like Chinese kid, right, and he was just this like really nice dude who had a huge, massive cock, and he was just like doing it, like all of the moves, right, and now. The reason he spent so long in shop is because he really needed to buy that cloth armor, right? And what buying that cloth armor allows him to do is to go up against this Malphite who does mostly magic damage, because he knows that he's a really good player who needs to buy Tab Eye to win this game, right? And now the reason he gets hit by the nothing there is because he's just a really good player who's just invincible to skill shots, right? Now you see he swats in the bush, baits the enemy into this false insecurity. You're like, oh haha, look at Jax, he's so bad, he's so down on gold, but actually he's not, because if you look at this from an objective precision, right, because of the fact that he has that Outer Drake, he has those Ornn items, he has that Cloud Drake, he has that Cloud Soul, he is just so far ahead of the lead, right? He is just, the game is just done, right? Because he is just such a good player who, despite looking at this, right, Herald is actually just a worthless objective right here, right? Because JJFJC is just such a good player that they can overcome any struggle, any task, any problems at all, because JJFJC is just a really good player who decides to walk in here despite knowing, he knows that two people are here. Now, you see, the reason Malphite didn't auto is because he had Mercy, right? Now, the reason he had Mercy is because they lured them into believing this weird false sense of security that JJFJC was just the worst player in the world, despite him actually being the best player in the world, right? Now, of course, this Luxu, she is obviously just a terrible player, right? Who cannot compare to the likes of JJFJC, who walks in there right next to the Yasuo, who has Q3. He sees it, he knows it, he knows the timings, he knows the positioning. He's a Yasuo one trick. He has so much experience with the champion, and he just goes in there, right? And now the reason is because Jax is actually a really difficult champion who needs a lot of mechanical knowledge and skill to pivot, right? And the reason, right, like so many high elo Korean players don't play Bard is because he's just such a difficult champion to know how to play, right? And when you're in the tense of the moment, right, it really just comes down to how good your mechanical skill is, right? And JJFJC is just pulling out here better than Knight, better than Yagu, better than Faku, better than my mom, at doing all these mechanical small things that just puts him so far ahead. Now, you see, JJFJC is just such a good mechanical player who walks down bot, goes with the Alistar, knows where he needs to go, knows what he needs to do, and he's just there, and he just goes in there, knows what he needs to do, knows all the timings, all the positionings. He's just so far ahead, has such a huge lead, right? And JJFJC walks back into the bush, walks out of the bush, walks back into the bush, and then finally goes and takes the wave. Now, the reason he takes the wave is because he's such a good player, so mechanically gifted, so many mechanical knowledge, and he's just such a good player, and he's so good, and he's so talented. And now you see here, he walks up to the minion wave, despite them being a huge lead ahead, because he knows that if he walks up, he'll just get everything. He couldn't have possibly won the game without walking up. Now, the reason here is because he can actually set up a kill for his team. He knew that. That was fully calculated. And you see, when Vayne Hugh kind of just 1v9s, he knew that was going to happen, because he needed to sacrifice his life so that his team could get so much. They couldn't have possibly done that without him. Now, you see, when they're walking Hugh, getting the inhib at 21 minutes and possibly ending the game, JJFJC knows that he is just such a good player. He is just so ahead, only down 10,000 gold, but you see, none of that matters, because he has that Elder Drake, he has that Inferno Soul, he has the Ornn items, he has that advantage, and he is just so far ahead, so mentally challenged, that he knows that he is just going to pull through, because he is just such a good player who burns his flash and does not end up queuing, because he knows that he has that Cloud Drake, he has that Inferno Sword, and has those Ornn items, and he's just so good, he's so far ahead, knows what to do, knows how to push the lead, knows when to play back, knows when to play safe, knows when to disengage, and he's just such a good player. Now, you see, the reason he walks straight in here is because he's a really good player, and despite leaving his entire backline unregarded, because he is such a good player, he just gets one shot by everyone, and they lose the game. Like, this is, like, stuff we can only see from the best teams in China. The best of the best. People ask why there's such a huge difference in LCK versus LPL, and this is the reason. JJFJC is in LPL because he is Chinese, and he is just pulling through, carrying all the guys. He's just so good, so talented, so handsome, so smart, because he is just so good, right? Now, So, basically, what we've covered here was this VOD review of this, like, really underrated player named JJFJC, and I'm fully expecting him to be in, you know, at the very least, scouted into one of, a tier 1 team in LPL next year, because he is just so good, and he, we've been in the talks, I've been sending him to all these, like, LCK teams, and they just felt like, they're not good enough. Right, because JJFJC is just such a good player. He's so good, he's so talented at everything he does. And make sure to come to my Patreon, donate, Twitch Prime, like everything you can, because all this money will be going to JJFJC and his almighty huge penis. Now, there's a really good video to record, and I really just wanted to show all of the GOAT players out there that you don't need mechanical skill to win. You just need to have as good a macro at JJFJC. Alright, later guys.